Welcome to the BPD Bunch. I'm your host, Xannie, and today I'm here with Hak Ja, Jack, Melanie, and Mo. Where in the world are you coming from today?
I'm coming from New Jersey, United States.
Atlanta, Georgia, United States.
Toronto, Canada.
And Central Ohio in the United States.
And I'm coming from New Mexico in the United States. Today we're going to be talking about BPD and making amends. If this or other BPD-related topics interest you, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that you do not miss anything. Let's just dive right in. How does the process of making amends intersect with the unique challenges you face as someone with borderline personality disorder?
For me, making amends is a challenge with my BPD because it's the black and white thinking. It's hard to admit when I'm wrong. When I think with every part of my body that I'm right, and this person is the one is the issue. Like I can't be the issue. They are. I can't. So it's realizing that, okay, I may be the issue, I may be the problem in the situation. I need to go apologize and try to be a better person, and knowing that I can grow and learn from mistakes.
The difficulty is in the awareness and seeing it before it happens is in that. And how it can affect you differently is that reactivity.
Yeah, I think awareness is like a big part of making amends. Let's say you're trying to make amends with someone, you're trying to have like this important conversation, and just the slightest change in wording, in tone, anything like that immediately like sets me down a spiral. And I feel like that is difficult, especially in an argument, because, maybe sometimes I'll just start crying and they're like, what happened? Where did this come from? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I am having like an irrational thought because you changed your tone. That's definitely like a big thing that I noticed for me as a struggle having BPD and trying to make amends, just being hypersensitive to all these little things that come up in these conversations.
I think like everyone has brought up really valid points, but something else that made it challenging for me to make amends with people from my past is a lot of the people that I chose to hang out with also had their own stuff going on. They were trying to process their own stuff. And so by the time that I was recovered enough to be able to reflect on myself and, swallow my pride and acknowledge where I went wrong, I was still sort of like splitting on the people from my past or even the people in my present life. And I would just think like, well, they did this and that. So, I'm justified in the behavior that I participated in. And so it was really hard for me to acknowledge that other people suffer and have reasonings for their own bad behaviors or dysfunctional behaviors. So not just accepting the fact that you made mistakes, but also that other people make mistakes, and we all need to try to be understanding of each other and try to move past it when we're both trying to make an effort to be better.
I can really relate to that whole like, oh, somebody did this thing, so therefore I'm justified to behave this way. That was a huge thing for me too. And this is probably a good transition into our next question, which is kind of a continuation of this one. Have you ever struggled with apologizing or taking ownership for your behavior? And if so, what specifically do you think was getting in the way? And I think some of it was lack of self-awareness, I think. Just straight up. I just really wasn't that aware. But a lot of it did come from that sort of black or white thinking and these really sort of twisted beliefs that kind of came from a kernel of truth, right? Like somebody may have behaved in a way that activated, hurt feelings in me. And that might have been true. And then I would take that to the extreme and then justify arguably like worse behavior sort of in retaliation. Like I definitely used to be extremely vindictive, and I did not really apologize for that for a long time because it really felt like I was making things even, like the scales were tipped because someone hurt me, and so by retaliating I'm just evening things out, and I don't owe anyone an apology for that. Of course, the problem is half the time I was reacting to things like perceived criticisms. They weren't even legitimately trying to hurt my feelings. I wasn't aware of that, and so I just kind of exploded back at people and just didn't. It was like, well, you did this, so I'm justified. Peace.
I really relate to everything you were saying, Xannie. And I was reading a lot and have been studying a lot about rumination and self-absorption. And so it's like everybody is in a movie featuring Melanie. So here's my movie, and Steve, my husband's there. But what about Steve? How does Steve feel? So throughout the years, I've really had to recognize the castmates of Melanie's movie. And what I mean by that is I don't mean I'm self-absorbed, but I'm self-absorbed, because when you're constantly in rumination, what about the people around me? And that actually is from a place of love, because we're continually beating ourselves up, right? I might be abandoned. I might be this. So you're actually sometimes acting out of anger because your brain is beating you up so much. So it really takes you getting out of your brain a lot, and that's a lot of work. But when you don't know the skills, or maybe you're not taught that, or you didn't come from a safe background, that's really difficult.
A reason why it's hard for me to apologize, there's a few people from my past who were in my life like at the peak of the worst of my BPD. And I very much want to apologize to them for the way that I treated them, because for the most part, they all treated me with love and respect, despite the way that I was acting around them. But the thing that stops me is, one, honestly, it's a little bit of embarrassment, because I'm so embarrassed from it. So it's hard to get past that. And also, I feel like maybe it wouldn't be healthy to reach out to them personally, because I don't know how they're going to react. And maybe I'm just making this all up in my head, but I feel like they would just bring up things that maybe I've forgotten about or just wasn't aware of, and it would just make me feel even worse. But I hope that somehow, some way, they know that I've grown and I've changed and I'm not that person anymore, and that I've healed. And I hope that they also understood that it was nothing personal when I did the things that I did to them. It was just me not knowing how to regulate my emotions, and it was me not knowing how to process the trauma that I went through. So I still struggle with it. And it's just those specific people, because for the most part, I'm able to apologize to the people and make amends to the people who I need to talk to. But that one group of people from the peak of the worst of my symptoms, like, it's really hard for me to swallow my pride and reach out to them.
Yeah, I have something similar, like what Mo said. It's really more a specific group. People will have more trouble apologizing to, and it's more because my whole life I was made to apologize, especially for things that weren't my faults, because it would just make everybody's life easier. Just be the big man to apologize. You're telling this to a 8, 9, 10-year-old to be the bigger man, to somebody who is a grown person. Like, why should I apologize? And so, like, now is that resentment, that's resistance to apologize, because, like, if I apologize, I'm back to that little 9, 8, 10-year-old boy who's being made to apologize again. There are times where I know I'm in the wrong. I can't apologize. It's easy, especially with like smaller stuff. Like, Jack, you're being annoying. Okay, I'm sorry, my bad. But it's like when it's something bigger, it's like, if somebody tells me like just apologize, oh, you're getting the last thing from an apology. In honesty.
Oh, so beautifully put, Jack. There's moments where like my ego pipes up and I'm like, you're not going to tell me what to do. My dad told me what to do. This teacher told me what to do. And this like bitterness comes out, and this anger, part of my BPD, every symptom just shoots up, and the child in me comes out. And for me to get to the point where I had to manage my expectations, realizing I can't control others, I can only control my own internal body. But that activated nervous system that I live with still, making amends with my nervous system, the child in me, I'm still doing that inner child work, right? That child, like, you're going to make me do something that I had to do so much. Are we responding to that person right now, or are we responding to how many versions of our past selves that we had to act to be like, right? And that's the difference, is that I'm not responding to the person in front of me sometimes. I'm responding to so many people who made me do so many different things. And this is why I'm moving my head like this, because you aren't going to tell me what to do anymore. But the truth is that I get to choose now and take back my power. And so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
As everyone's talking, I think one of the other things that occurs to me of like what makes making amends, or has in the past in particular made making amends difficult, is that level of emotional pain that is just really intense when, you know, when I feel like someone has done something to me and then I lash out at them. I think part of it is this belief that like until they can really recognize and understand my pain, I can't move beyond that to even think about an apology or to think about making amends with them or with me. It's just like, you need to understand my pain in order for me to be able to let this go. And I don't necessarily believe that anymore, at least not on a conscious level. I think there may be some part of my emotions that are still like, you have to understand my pain. And then, but I think that was a big barrier, was just that it would feel like almost performative to give an apology otherwise, where it's just like, you don't really get me, so why do I owe you this?
As you guys were talking, I kind of was like, this is just like the Barbie movie. I was like, oh my God, like, we all have our Kens and we're all Barbie. Like, we're so special and we don't even realize, like, we're hurting all these people because, you know, we're just like, we're the star of the show and we're just doing what's right for us. But what's right for us, you know, of course, sometimes it's gonna hurt other people, like, whether we mean to or not, because everyone has different reactions to things. But it's like, if I'm doing the right thing for myself, I'm not a bad person. So why should I have to apologize? You know, also, it's like, I am justified in what I did because you did this. So of course I'm gonna split. Of course I'm gonna like go into black and white thinking like, you did this to me. So therefore you are a bad person. So therefore you deserve everything that I'm saying, everything that I'm doing. And it's so bad.
The number of times that I have said, I have BPD, as though that somehow excuses things. It's like, oh gosh, it's like cringy to think back to that.
Sometimes for me, making amends with somebody is not hurting them the way I know I can. I can make you question everything about your life, I could push you to that edge to where you like, okay, I'm checking out eternally, but I'm not. And that's me making my amends to you. I'm not going to do that because it's not worth my time. I'm out because like I said, I know what it's like to be hurt. I know what it's like to be pushed that edge. I don't want that on my conscience. So my amends is you're just dead to me by, you're lucky. That's it. That's the amends.
Yep. I mean, sometimes I want an award at the end of the day because it's like, I wasn't as mean as I could have been. I deserve a pat on the back for that. Like, I was only this much mean. I could have been so mean. So, all right, we should move on to the next question. Tell me about a time that you apologized to someone, and what was the thought process behind your decision to apologize? And then how did the other person respond?
The times where I really feel like I need to apologize, it's either for one of two reasons. I need to either like make peace with myself, you know, and get over like this hump of whatever is like really sitting heavy on me and really causing a lot of distress. So it's like a little bit selfish, you know, I need to let go of this. Or it's, I want to keep this relationship. I want to enjoy the company of this person once again. It's so uncomfortable. Like, BPD is named one of the most painful illnesses for a reason, right? You are ruminating all the time, feeling your feelings, and you're just sitting in this darkness, and it's just so uncomfortable. You don't want to speak to your pain. You don't want to, you know, even like bring up anything that could make it worse. But not talking about it is also making it worse. Not talking about it is letting you ruminate more. I think this has happened with everyone I've ever dated. You know, I'm sorry. I'm just seeing Jack laughing and but yeah, with everyone I've ever dated, like this has happened very recently, actually. You know, I let 2 weeks go by of just things kind of building up. Like today, I'm supposed to go to a concert, but I have decided that, you know, with all these things going on and like just being overwhelmed, that it's not the best thing for me because I keep letting things like pile up because I have this get together, because I have this concert, whatever. I'm not going to bring up my problems because I want to people please and I don't want to create any drama. I don't want to feel sad because I want to go out and do the thing. I want to go and have fun. But I've had to, you know, like sit with myself and be like, yes, I am wrong for one, not bringing this up sooner and letting this build up. But two, like, I don't want this to be the dynamic because I'm going to always be on edge. I'm going to be like more snappy and more hurtful because I haven't brought this up. And yeah, I wish I did want to go to this concert today, but I don't because I let this happen and that is my fault. The reaction, I'm not going to say it's good or bad, right? It's just their reaction. You know, my partner is a really like understanding person, but obviously like I've had to make space for his feelings too. So he obviously was not happy about this, but you know, I kind of have to receive that a little bit gracefully because I created this situation. So, you know, we had to definitely talk that out. But we've come to the understanding like, okay, you were hurt by XYZ. I was hurt by XYZ. We got to take a little bit of some time and we have to like figure out how we're going to heal from this before we go and jump into more of these like activities where these triggers could happen or where these arguments are more likely to happen.
I really love what you're saying, Hak Ja, because I think a lot of the battles that I have with my own husband, Steve, have been these big, big battles, but these small little internal battles with myself as to whether I should say anything before it starts stewing. The example I had was the other day where I was so exhausted, burnt out, poopy, schmoopy, in a bad mood. And instead of just communicating that, like your example with, hey, I don't want to go, I was massively rude to him. I just was. And he takes the grunt of it, right? And so I went up to him, I said, hey, you know what? You didn't deserve that today. And it was a simple, very small communication. And he actually received it beautifully because it was authentic from my heart. And he said back, he goes, I'm really sorry too, because he had reacted back. And he said, I really appreciate that. You know, but it was really effective. And sometimes that effective, slight communication saved me, you know, going to bed angry, etc.
So I've had a mixture of good reactions and bad reactions from people who I've apologized to in the past. But one story that really sticks out was I had this friend that I've known for pretty much my whole life. And about 2 years ago, someone close to her died. And so she was going through a really rough time. And during that time, like I was super stressed because I had a tiny baby with me and we were moving. And so there was just a lot going on in my life. But I still wanted to be there for my friend who was really struggling with this loss. And so about a week after I had moved, I was still stressed because we were like setting up the house and stuff. So everything was still kind of chaotic. And she called me and she wanted me to like come over and hang out with her because she was having a rough time. And I was so stressed and so tired and I snapped. And I was like, I don't even remember everything I said, but I snapped and I basically told her like, you need to find a way to get past this, which was really like shitty of me because she was grieving somebody that she'll never see again, you know? And so we hang up and then about a few hours later, I text her and I was like, I'm really sorry. I'm just super stressed out and there was no reason for me to do that to you. And I, you know, I recognized that I was like way out of line. And so she didn't respond for like several days. And I was like, oh my gosh, I messed up big time, you know? And it turns out that she's one of those people who just doesn't respond to text messages very fast. So, and I knew that about her. I got into my emotions, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so mad at me. And so I just call her after a few days and we talked about it, and she didn't even remember it because she was so wrapped up in her own grief and her own stuff. And she just ended up going to another friend's house. So it wasn't even like that big of a deal to her. But for me, like, I felt like shit. Like, oh my gosh, I felt horrible. Like, even like just thinking about it now, I feel bad because that would just destroy me if I was going through what she went through and someone was like, oh, just get over it, you know? So yeah, like some of the things that you might think are the end of the world, like some of the things that you've done you might be in your head about it, but for other people, it might not be that big of a deal to them.
Me and my business partner having meetings nonstop for like 2.5 weeks straight on the phone every day, 5, 6, 7, 8 hour phone calls, trying to trying to get our business order. I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm just low energy. And I just snap at her real quick. Just a quick little snap, nothing major. And I felt shitty about it. So like I apologized to her and she's like, oh, I didn't even notice you snapped at me. So like, I just, yeah, like, it's nothing. Like, okay, oh, I sent you an apology, but I didn't realize it. Let's keep moving.
I recently apologized for behavior in my teenage years to someone. This person was not particularly outwardly emotionally expressive. They tend to be more of an internal processor with their emotions. And I kind of took that to mean, oh, they just don't have big feelings. They don't really care. This doesn't matter that much. And I kind of wanted to try to force them to show emotions. And I was really, really pretty mean. I would call them names. And for years, I didn't even apologize at all for any of my past behavior because it didn't really occur to me that I needed to, especially because this person was more in a caregiver role. From my perspective, they seemed like the big, strong person who should be able to handle whatever I throw at them, right? This is just how kids are. And then I had this realization where I thought, oh my gosh, I acted like such a bitch when I was young. And I just assumed that they didn't care because they didn't have an outward reaction that was obvious to me. So then recently I called them up and I said, hey, I know that like in passing, I've kind of apologized in general for how I was in the past. But I just wanted to say that I realized that I kind of took the fact that you weren't emotionally expressive for granted. And I really want to apologize for how I acted when I was a teenager and how verbally abusive I was, because I realized you were just, there's no way you didn't care. Like all this stuff, there was like a pause and they were like, yeah, I don't think I'm actually over it yet. Whew, it really hurt. It really hurt to hear that. In a good way, I think. Like I needed them to be honest with me about it. I realized that there has actually been a distance between us because we've never really been able to make a repair. And there was a moment where I was frustrated because I didn't say this to them, but I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, well, if they weren't over it, why didn't they come to me? Why didn't they come talk to me about it? But it's also like it's been more than 15 years. It would be kind of an awkward conversation for someone to be like, hey, just so you know, I'm not over this thing that happened 15 years ago. And so I guess that kind of set me on this path to being even more aware than I have been about the people that I've hurt in the past, and saying, hey, if you have any grievances that you want to air out with me, like, just know that I'm open to that. I'm open to having that conversation because I want to make sure that I have good, close relationships with all of you.
How do you plan on repairing that? Like, do you think the person will eventually just get over it? Or is there something you think you could do? How do you move on from that?
That's a good question. I'm not totally sure, but they did say that they were grateful for the call and that they were interested in keeping that line of communication open so that we could have a closer relationship. So I'm kind of impatient. I was thinking like, oh, we need to talk about this all the time, but I'm kind of letting them take the lead a little bit and, reaching out more and basically just trying to give them more opportunities to express how they feel about things and just try to be open to whatever might come my way.
As a qualifying psychotherapist too, all of my clients, they bring in this information of, oh, my parents this, oh, my parents that. And there were so many sides of me where I was like, can I manage my expectations with my father? And there were so many years of sitting with my father where I was so angry at him, and I'm holding in this grief of letting go of the process. I was picking up everything that my clients were saying, and it was like every time they would talk about it, I was activated. And so I had to make a decision and reflect on that decision. And I eventually got to this place where I decided with my dad that I wanted to say the things I was afraid of saying. And I did it in a letter. And this letter was basically me managing my expectations to get nothing back, but saying all the things that I wanted to say to him. And I swear it was the scariest thing when I clicked send, because I was like, fuck. But I was received.
Is this you making amends with him or you holding him accountable for the way he acted towards you?
Both. I wanted accountability, and I wanted to make amends with the demons inside of me that weren't able to say the things that I wanted to say, because I live with a lot of fear in my nervous system, and I think that holds me back from being the version of myself that I truly want to be. So I wanted to make twofold: an amends with myself and manage the expectations that no matter what I got back, that these people that are my parents that I love to this day, because I can only control so much of other people, right? And then the second fold was praying that I could get some sort of understanding and accountability. There was an understanding. And that was the second fold. But the really was managing my expectations to make amends with myself, that I could finally say the things fully, clearly out that I wanted to say. So that was the bigger one of my entire life.
Making amends with yourself. Oh, that's something I'm still struggling with to this day. Realizing that not everything was my fault. It's like that I didn't deserve a lot of stuff that I went through. But still but still feeling guilty about it. It's like I have this one of those things you have to do. It's one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever had to attempt to do. It's attempting to, because I'm still in the attempting to do it phase. So actually doing, I can imagine have to actually unpack everything and look at everything objectively. No bias to say this was not your fault, Jack. You had no control over this. You're just a victim as much as anything else. That making amends part is part of the hardest thing of all amends you have to make. It's the hardest one to do.
Since you two brought it up, the making amends with yourself is a very important part of this whole concept. And it's interesting because like I have friends that I've made since being in recovery, and one of them said to me, we were on the phone one time, and she said, Xannie, you make yourself out to be like this horrible person, but I hope you know I've never seen that. Like, I don't think you need to keep apologizing for the person who you used to be, because you've put in that work, and it's obvious you've put in that work. And that kind of struck me, because I was like, oh, maybe it isn't the most helpful thing to always be putting myself sort of in the demon category, and that it is okay for me to tell myself that, like, yes, you will always keep growing, and that doesn't mean that you have to like hate yourself or see yourself as this horrible person, because you may have behaved that way in the past, but you really don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I have a problem demonizing myself as well. Making myself be like this worst, horrible, demonic person you could come across. It's because I still haven't made amends for myself. I still haven't apologized to myself, saying, Jack, I'm sorry for all this pain and stuff you've been through, or you put yourself through in order to make it. It's because you think you have to punish yourself. I'm still working on it. I know I'm not this horrible person, I just can't help but feel like it because it's easy. That's what it is. I think that's what it is. It's easy to make yourself seem like you're a worse person, so you can just excuse being an asshole.
I think I can speak to, making amends with yourself. What really like started the process was I've had a lot of medical problems. My knee was like a big issue for a majority of my life where I was limited in my activities. I had to have surgeries, physical therapy, a lot of trauma around that. I was always being told by doctors and people like, I have to do better, I have to do this and that, I have to push through all this pain, or I'm gonna like be a cripple for the rest of my life. And that really wasn't motivating for me. I guess that can be motivating for some people, but I don't know. I was like, 12 the first time I had that surgery on my knee. So I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really work. So I hated that my leg didn't work. I hated that I was in these situations, and I had to start saying thank you. Thank you for like still working and still like, carrying me, because I had to be like, whether we're aware of it or not, like our bodies are fighting for us 24/7 when we're awake, when we're asleep. It's just like an unconditional love that it has for us. And, in the same way, our brain is doing the same thing too.
What are some effective strategies or techniques you've used to make amends with yourself or with others?
Well, with others, I've used the same technique that pretty much every Black parent has. I go find the person, ask them if they're hungry, and go give them something to eat. Like, I'm like, hey, you hungry? I'm gonna grab some McDonald's or some Chick-fil-A. You want some? And there you go. That's how you make them. I'm joking, no, I just try to find the right time and really just let them know that I truly am sorry for whatever wrong I did. That's really the best way, just being straight up honest, from no bullshit, no sugarcoating it, just be direct, like, hey, I messed up, I'm sorry. Do you forgive me? Yes or no? Yes. Oh, cool, let's move on. No, I'm sorry, I still apologize. Let's hope, in the future, we'll see.
What you're saying, Jack, about, like asking them to go get food. Sometimes repair is just about creating more of these positive interactions. And it can be as simple as getting food. You're right. Like food is definitely one of my biggest like ways to reconnect and fix things. Like let's sit down, let's have a moment, let's do something fun together. Let's, take a minute to just reconnect as people. And that I feel like that's a big part of repair. Is I don't think it has to be that complicated. I don't feel like it has to be a whole intervention or anything like that. Sometimes it's just having a good time with another person and moving forward, in a more positive direction than whatever the situation was.
In my experience, like making amends and apologizing and recognizing the part that you played and something is never easy, not for me anyways, but it does get easier. And I think something that makes it easier is recognizing that everybody makes mistakes. We all behave in a way that, we look back on and we're not happy with ourselves. So don't beat yourself up when you need to apologize, when you need to reach out to someone and try to repair the damage that you did. The best thing you can do is, like Jack said, like be honest, just, like acknowledge what you did that hurt them, acknowledge that, they're mad or whatever they are. And after that, you have to let it go. There's no need to like dwell on it. There's no need to like, for the most part, there's no need to continue to try to get back on that person's good side. Like if they decide that they don't accept your apology, there's just no need to like stay in that place of shame and guilt. You've learned your lesson. You just got to move on, even if that other person can't. Like after you apologize, it's up to them to, and even if you don't apologize, it's still up to that other person to move past it, because their emotional well-being is their responsibility. So just keep it simple, keep it honest, and hopefully the other person will be accepting of it.
You bring up something really important. I think the aspect of apologies where sometimes other people won't accept it. And I think even when you have done something really wrong, it probably doesn't serve you to continue to beat yourself up about it, because that doesn't really help you to change. I know some of the things that I've done are hard for people to get over. I mean, clearly, you know, I've had people even straight up after 15 years say, I'm still not over this, right? And so in those times, I think it's important that the apology is really more about my own growth and about my own self-respect. When things are going wrong, I usually have to, in the moment, take a step back from whatever is happening, because I'm not very good at being able to apologize if I am feeling actively hurt. I am usually able to maintain an intense conversation, but the apology part is hard for me until I've taken a step back, because I really want to take ownership for things that I truly believe I need to apologize for. And I'm trying not to be performative and just apologize for the sake of doing it. So take a step back, and then I try to take ownership for the things that I can. And if the other person is not someone who is great at taking ownership for their part, then later I decide how much I want to continue a relationship with that person, because I don't want to be the only one who's always owning their part in things. So, you know, that's sort of a long-term aspect of my relationships. But for the most part, I do think that the people I surround myself with are good at taking ownership for their part, and that makes it a very balanced relationship.
I do a lot of different strategies. It depends on the situation personally for me, but something that you mentioned reminded me of something that I have to do continuously every day, not only to forgive myself and people, but situations that aren't exactly how I want them. And it's honestly radical acceptance, because I can't always control other people. And in radical acceptance in DBT, it doesn't ask you to accept everything that happened. And it says things aren't always fair, but if we can't accept it, then we can't move forward. And so for me, I noticed a lot of that resistance, because what we resist persists, would just keep coming at me. It's like almost like the law of attraction. Why do I keep seeing this at my face? So I eventually got to the point where I was like, fine. All right, I see you. But then without clinging to it, without attaching to it, I could be there almost at mindful peace, because mindfulness is just being there with it and move forward.
I think this is a difficult topic to come up with strategies that are specific to apologies or making amends, because I think it really requires a lot of the general interpersonal effectiveness and communication skills that we have to apply to all different kinds of situations. But I think one of the things in terms of communication that might be important to say is that, for me anyway, I try to be clear on what I'm apologizing for, and very specific, you know, because sometimes I am just standing up for myself, but maybe the way that I did it wasn't appropriate. So I might say, you know, I'm really sorry for the tone I used when I said that. Instead of apologizing for what I said, because I'm not sorry for what I said. In some cases I really was standing up for myself, but maybe I used more venom in my voice than maybe was necessary, and that set off a defensive response in the other person. And so I think that's, you know, just in terms of communication, trying to be really clear and use very specific language.
Don't attach your apology to somebody else to the apology you have to yourself. That would seem like one of the first speed bumps somebody who's just starting off will have, is attaching, like, well, when I give an apology, the person has to apologize in order for me to feel better about myself and for my apology to work for me, to stick to my apology to myself, to stick to me. So yeah, I guess as strategy, one of the first strategies is just don't attach yourself to what if somebody else forgives you, because I see that I already see already in the comments. Well, what if somebody doesn't want to accept my apology? Doesn't matter. You don't control them. You control yourself. If they don't accept your apology, just keep them moving forward.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's, you know, of course, yes, like apologies are partially about relationships, but a lot of the times it's about self-respect. It's about you knowing at the end of the day that you did everything you could to rectify a situation regardless of the outcome.
Exactly.
And just knowing when to walk away from that if you need to. Knowing when enough is enough. Just walk away.
Yeah, what's the saying? If you love something and you let it go and it returns to you, it was meant to be. If it's not, oh well. Exactly that. If they don't want to forgive you right now, who knows? A year or two, maybe they'll start looking internally into themselves and they come back. If not, you just missed the biggest bullet of your life.
Thank you everyone so much for watching. We hope you got a nugget of wisdom to take with you on your journey. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that you do not miss a single episode. Friday we'll be back to talk about the concept of self-forgiveness and the role that plays in making amends. So be back for that. And then we will be back with a brand new topic next Wednesday. So we will see you next time.